Lieutenant Arya Voss stood at the viewport of the civilian transport, Aurora's Hope, staring at the broken skeleton of Kepler Station. The massive structure hung in orbit around what remained of a dwarf planet, shattered 30 years ago during the final battle between humanity and the Galactic Alliance. Twisted metal and carbonized hull fragments stretched for kilometers in every direction. A celestial graveyard. Silent, but for the occasional ping of debris against the transport's shields. Entering optimal scan range, Lieutenant, called her navigator, a Thulian with mottled green skin. Are you certain there's anything worth salvaging here? Records indicate this sector was thoroughly purged. Arya didn't turn from the viewport. All sectors were thoroughly purged. Nex, that was the point. That was what the Alliance had wanted. Humanity abolished. Not just defeated or subjugated, but erased. Even speaking of humans was discouraged in official communications. 30 years since humanity's last stand at the Battle of Kepler, and the Alliance believed they had succeeded. The extinction of a species, bureaucratically categorized as problem resolved, humanity abolished. And yet here, Arya stood, a living contradiction to that official narrative, though none of her crew knew it. To them, she was just another Proximan, a near-human species whose subtle differences, slightly elongated fingers, a distinctive ridge along the temples, allowed her to pass undetected among the Alliance worlds. I'm picking up an anomaly, said her communications officer. Trill, antennae twitching with interest. Faint signal emanating from the far side of the debris field. Arya's pulse quickened. Plot an approach course. Maintain stealth protocols. The Aurora's Hope drifted silently through the debris. Engines dampened to minimal output. As a registered salvage vessel, they had legitimate reason to be here, but Arya preferred to avoid Alliance patrols whenever possible. Each encounter meant scrutiny, and scrutiny could lead to discovery. As they rounded the largest fragment of the former station, the signal grew stronger. Arya leaned over Trill's console, studying the readout. That's a distress beacon, she murmured. An old one. Earth standard frequency. Trill's antennae straightened in alarm. Lieutenant, we should report this to the nearest Alliance outpost. Protocols regarding human artifacts are explicit. We're obligated to investigate any distress signal. Arya interrupted. Basic spacefaring law. Prepare a shuttle. Within minutes, Arya was piloting a small craft through the dense field of debris, following the signal to its source. It led her not to the ruins of Kepler Station as expected, but to a small, unmarked asteroid at the edge of the debris field. As she drew closer, she detected an artificial cavity within the rock, a hangar bay, concealed from casual scans. The bay doors were sealed, but the beacon transmitted an access code that her systems automatically processed. With a grinding of ancient mechanisms, the doors slowly parted. Inside, she found not the remains of long-dead humans, but a small, functioning outpost. Emergency lighting activated as her shuttle touched down, revealing a cramped but operational facility. The air was stale but breathable, and on the walls, the emblem of the Earth Defense Force, humanity's last organized military. Arya moved through the outpost cautiously, pulse rifle at the ready. The place appeared deserted, but showed signs of recent occupation. Food rations opened within days, not decades. Equipment maintained, not abandoned. In the command center, she found what she was looking for. A data terminal, still operational. She inserted a decryption key she'd kept hidden for years, a relic of her true past. The screen flickered to life, displaying a star map with a blinking coordinate set. Accompanying text scrolled across the screen. To whoever finds this, we are not extinct. We are not abolished. The remnant gathers at Mimir's well. Confirmation, Odysseus lives. Arya's hands trembled as she downloaded the data to a secure drive. Odysseus, the code name for Admiral Jackson Cruz, commander of humanity's last fleet. If he lived. If there were others. A noise behind her made her spin, rifle raised. A human man stood in the doorway, haggard but very much alive. "Didn't expect company," he said, voice rough from disuse. "Especially not Alliance." Arya lowered her weapon. "I'm not Alliance." The man's eyes narrowed. "Your ship bears Alliance registry." "A necessary deception." Arya reached slowly to her temple, pressing a small device concealed there. The subtle ridge along her hairline, her Proximan disguise, shimmered and disappeared. "My name is Lieutenant Arya Voss, Earth Defense Force Special Operations. I've been looking for survivors for a very long time." The man stared, disbelief warring with desperate hope. "Proof," he demanded. "Anyone could know our codes." Arya recited from memory. Earth Defense Directive 117. In the event of catastrophic defeat, surviving officers will disperse, conceal their identity, and await the call of Odysseus. The man's posture relaxed slightly. "Chase Harlow, Communications Specialist. I maintain this relay station." He gestured to the terminal. "So you've seen it. Then, the gathering call." "Odysseus lives?" Arya could barely form the question. Harlow nodded. "Admiral Cruz survived. He's been building a resistance for decades, gathering survivors, building ships, planning." His expression darkened. "Planning revenge." Back aboard the Aurora's Hope, Arya sequestered herself in her quarters, mind racing. The coordinates from the outpost pointed to an asteroid belt in a remote, uncharted system, Mimir's Well, apparently the base of human resistance operations. After 30 years believing herself possibly the last human in an Alliance uniform, the revelation that others survived, that they organized, changed everything. For years, she had performed her duties as a salvage captain, keeping her head down, her identity secret. It was survival, not resistance. But now, a chime at her door interrupted her thoughts. "Enter," she called, quickly reactivating her Proximan disguise. Lorne Vext, her security officer, stepped in, tall and angular, with the characteristic pale skin of his Centaurian species. Vext had been with her crew longer than anyone. She trusted him, as much as she trusted anyone. "Lieutenant," he began, unusual formality in his tone. "The crew is concerned about our detour to the human outpost." Arya maintained a neutral expression. It was a routine salvage inspection. "With respect, you spent 2 hours inside a human military installation without calling for backup or reporting it to Alliance authorities." Vext's eyes, solid black orbs, revealed nothing. "The crew fears repercussions." "The installation was abandoned." Arya lied smoothly. "I found nothing of value to report." Vext was silent for a long moment. "Lieutenant, I've served with you for 7 years. In that time, I've never known you to violate protocol. Until today." He stepped closer. "Whatever you found there has changed something." Arya weighed her options carefully. Vext was observant, intelligent, and under Alliance law, obligated to report contact with human survivors. Yet, something in his manner suggested. "The outpost was recently occupied," she admitted. "There are survivors." She expected shock, perhaps even alarm. Instead, Vext nodded slowly. "I suspected as much," he said. "The Alliance narrative never seemed complete." "Are you going to report this?" Vext's expression remained unreadable. "That depends. What do you intend to do with this information?" Arya met his gaze steadily. "I intend to find them." "Why?" The question caught her off guard. Why indeed? She had survived by hiding, by becoming someone else. Seeking out other humans meant risking everything. "Because I'm tired of being abolished," she finally said. Vext considered this, then nodded once. "Then I will help you, but the others cannot know, not yet." "Why would you risk this?" Arya asked. "The Alliance would execute you for treason." A flicker of emotion crossed Vext's usually impassive features. The Alliance executed my entire family for harboring human refugees during the Purge. Their justice is selective. He turned to leave, then paused. Set your course, Lieutenant. I'll ensure the crew's compliance. 3 days later, the Aurora's Hope approached the coordinates from the outpost. A dense asteroid belt circling a neutron star. The radiation from the star created natural interference, making it ideal for hiding. Entering the belt now, announced Nex from navigation. Sensors are compromised by radiation. Proceeding on visual. Arya scanned the field of tumbling rocks. Maintain course. Reduce speed to 1/4. They drifted deeper into the belt, the asteroids growing larger and more numerous. Several showed signs of mining operations, not unusual in itself, but no registered claims existed for this system. Lieutenant, called Trill suddenly, we're being scanned. Before Arya could respond, a comm channel opened. No visual, just a voice, human, female, hard-edged. Alliance vessel, you have entered restricted space. Power down and prepare to be boarded. Arya exchanged glances with Vext, who gave an almost imperceptible nod. This is Lieutenant Arya Voss of the civilian transport Aurora's Hope, she responded. I come seeking Odysseus. Silence stretched for nearly a minute. Transmitting verification protocols, the voice finally replied. A complex sequence of codes appeared on Trill's console. Arya recognized them immediately. Earth Defense Force authentication ciphers, designed to identify friendly vessels. Transmit this response, Arya instructed, typing a sequence from memory. Another long pause. Authentication accepted, the voice returned. Follow the beacon to Docking Bay 3. Any deviation will result in immediate destruction. A small signal appeared on their navigation system, leading deeper into the asteroid field. As they followed it, massive rocks shifted position, not random movement, but controlled. They were moving aside, revealing a path. The path led to the largest asteroid in the field, easily 20 kilometers in diameter. As they approached, a section of the surface split open, revealing a massive hangar bay carved into the rock itself. By the void, whispered Nex. This is a military installation. Full stop, ordered Arya. Prepare for docking procedures. The Aurora's Hope glided into the cavernous hangar, where a dozen other ships of various designs were already docked. Most bore Alliance markings, though clearly repurposed. Along the walls, armed personnel in unmarked uniforms stood at attention. Humans, all of them. As the ship settled onto the landing pad, Arya turned to her crew. I need to meet with their leadership alone, she said. Commander Vext will accompany me. The rest of you, remain aboard and maintain systems at ready status. Trill's antennae flattened against her head. Lieutenant, if these are human survivors, we are legally obligated to— I am aware of our legal obligations, Arya interrupted. But I'm also aware of our moral ones. We will hear them out before making any decisions. Outside the ship, they were met by a security detail. 6 humans in gray uniforms, armed with weapons that appeared cobbled together from Alliance and Earth Defense Force designs. Their leader, a woman with close-cropped white hair and weathered features, stepped forward. Lieutenant Voss, I'm Commander Rebecca Stern. Admiral Cruz is waiting. She eyed Vext suspiciously. Your companion was not expected. Commander Vext has earned my trust, Arya replied firmly. He comes with me, or I don't come at all. Stern's expression remained skeptical, but she nodded. Follow me. And remember, one wrong move from either of you, and you won't leave this asteroid alive. They were led through a series of corridors carved directly into the rock, reinforced with metal plating. The facility was larger than Arya had anticipated, with multiple levels and sections. Hundreds of people moved purposefully through the halls, all human, all looking far more organized than she would have expected from refugees. Stern brought them to a heavy blast door guarded by 4 soldiers. After a retinal scan, the door slid open to reveal a war room. Holographic displays showed star charts, ship movements, and what appeared to be Alliance military installations. At the center of it all stood a man Arya recognized immediately from historical records, Admiral Jackson Cruz. Once the youngest admiral in Earth's fleet, he was now in his 70s, his formerly dark hair now white, face lined with age and hardship. But his eyes, they burned with the same intensity, seen in every recording of his famous speeches before the final battle. "Lieutenant Arya Voss," he said, voice still commanding despite his years. "The daughter of Captain Elena Voss of the EDF Intrepid. We thought you lost with your mother's ship." Arya stiffened. Few knew of her parentage. She had buried that information deep. "I was on leave when the Intrepid was destroyed. When the purge began, I adapted." Cruz studied her. "You infiltrated Alliance society." "I survived," Arya corrected. "As you have." The Admiral's gaze shifted to Vext. "And this is?" "Commander Lorne Vext, my security officer and trusted advisor," Arya replied. Cruz's expression hardened. "A Centaurian. Member of one of the founding races of the Alliance that exterminated our people." Vext met the Admiral's gaze without flinching. "I have no loyalty to those who executed my family for showing mercy to yours, Admiral." Cruz considered this, then nodded slightly. "Commander Stern will show you to quarters. Commander Vext, I need to speak with Lieutenant Voss alone." Vext glanced at Arya, who nodded. After they left, Cruz gestured to a side room, more sparsely furnished but private. "You've maintained your cover well," Cruz said once they were alone. "Not many could pass as Proximant for so long." "Necessity is a powerful motivator," Arya replied, "as is fear." Cruz poured 2 glasses of amber liquid from a bottle on a small table. "Whiskey. Real Earth whiskey. From one of the last distilleries. I've been saving it." He handed her a glass. "For occasions such as this." Arya accepted the drink but didn't sip. "Admiral, what exactly is this occasion? What is happening here?" Cruz settled into a chair, suddenly looking every one of his years. "The resurrection of humanity, Lieutenant, or perhaps its final stand. Either way, the end of hiding." He gestured to a wall display, which activated to show a massive ship under construction in what appeared to be an Alliance shipyard. "The Nemesis," Cruz explained. "The Alliance's new flagship dreadnought, equipped with weapons that could destroy an entire planetary system." His expression darkened. "They built it to ensure there can never be another human uprising. Even if some of us survive the purge, it launches in 30 days. Arya studied the schematics. "You're planning to destroy it." "We're planning to steal it," Cruz corrected, "and use it to strike at the heart of the Alliance." Arya set down her untouched whiskey. "That's suicide. Even if you managed to capture it, the entire Alliance fleet would hunt you down." "Perhaps," Cruz finally sipped his drink. "But they would know we still exist, that we cannot be abolished with a bureaucratic decree, that humanity will not go quietly into extinction." "At what cost?" Arya demanded. "How many lives, human and alien, will be sacrificed for this gesture?" Cruz's eyes hardened. "They tried to exterminate our entire species. Lieutenant, what cost would you place on justice for genocide?" Arya had no immediate answer. For 30 years, she had buried her rage, her grief, beneath layers of necessary deception. The Alliance had declared humanity a threat to galactic stability, too aggressive, too expansionist to be allowed to spread among the stars. The solution had been clinical and absolute: containment, then systematic extermination. "What do you want from me?" she finally asked. "Your ship has valid Alliance registry. Your crew is mixed species, with no humans visible. You can move through Alliance space without raising alarms." Cruz leaned forward. "We need intelligence on the Nemesis's security protocols, crew rotations, construction timetables." things our other operatives can't access. Arya's mind raced. Using her ship, her crew, for espionage against the Alliance would cross a line she had carefully avoided for decades. If discovered, it meant death, not just for her, but for everyone aboard the Aurora's Hope. "I need time to consider this," she said. Cruz nodded, unsurprised. "You've survived this long by being cautious. I respect that." He stood. "Take the night. Commander Stern will show you to quarters. But remember, Lieutenant, every day we wait, the Nemesis moves closer to completion. And when it launches, any hope of humanity's survival likely dies with it." That night, Arya couldn't sleep. Her quarters, though comfortable, felt confining. She paced, mind turning over Cruz's request and its implications. Aiding the Remnant meant committing herself fully to resistance, abandoning the careful neutrality that had kept her alive. A soft knock at her door interrupted her thoughts. "Enter!" she called. Vexed stepped inside, closing the door behind him. "You should be resting," Arya said. "As should you." He moved to the small viewport that looked out on the hangar. "They have quite an operation here. 17 ships, weapons manufacturing, training facilities." "You've been exploring?" Vexed nodded. "Commander Stern gave me a guided tour. I believe it was meant to impress upon me the futility of betrayal." "And was it effective?" "It was educational." He turned to face her. "They're preparing for war, Arya, not survival, war." The use of her first name, rare from the formal Centaurian, emphasized his concern. "Cruz wants me to spy on the Alliance's new dreadnought," she admitted. "Use the Aurora's Hope to gather intelligence for a strike operation." Vexed absorbed this without visible reaction. "And your decision?" "I don't know," Arya resumed pacing. "For 30 years, I've lived a lie to survive. Now Cruz asks me to risk everything, not just my life, but yours, the crew's, for a cause that may be doomed." "Yet you're considering it," Vexed observed. Arya stopped, meeting his gaze. "Wouldn't you, if it were your people facing extinction?" "My people aren't facing extinction," Vexed replied quietly. "They helped ensure yours almost did." The blunt statement hung in the air between them. "I've never had the luxury of moral certainty," Vexed continued after a moment. "My family died for helping humans. I serve in an alliance I despise. I follow a commander who hides her true identity." A rare smile touched his lips. "Perhaps complex loyalties are my heritage." "And where do those loyalties lead you now?" Arya asked. Vexed moved to the door, then paused. "To the same place they always have. Lieutenant, to you." He glanced back. "Whatever you decide, I will follow. But understand the cost. War requires sacrifices, not all of them voluntary." After he left, Arya stared at the closed door, understanding the weight of his words. Vexed would follow her lead. But the others, Trill, Nex, the rest of her crew, they had no choice in this. They would become unwitting participants in a resistance they might not support, risking execution for treason. Yet the alternative was to walk away, to return to the charade of daily existence under Alliance rule, knowing that humanity's last hope might be extinguished. By morning, her decision was made. "We'll help," she told Cruz in his war room. "But on my terms. My crew remains unaware of the true purpose of our mission. As far as they know, we're conducting routine salvage operations near the shipyard." Cruz frowned. "Keeping them ignorant puts the operation at risk. Involving them without consent makes me no better than the Alliance," Arya countered. "These are my conditions, Admiral." After a tense moment, Cruz nodded. "Very well, Lieutenant. Your ship, your rules." He activated a holographic display showing the Tannhauser shipyards, where the Nemesis was under construction. "Here's what we need." 2 days later. The Aurora's Hope approached the massive Tannhauser shipyards, an orbital construction facility that circled a gas giant in the Orion corridor. Dozens of Alliance vessels were in various stages of construction or repair, but one dwarfed them all, the Nemesis, its kilometer-long frame nearly complete. "Transmitting our salvage credentials and work order," Trill announced from communications. Arya nodded, maintaining a calm exterior despite her racing heart. The forged work order should pass inspection. The Remnant had skilled hackers, but Alliance security had tightened recently. "Clearance granted," Trill confirmed after a tense moment. "We're authorized for salvage operations in the outer maintenance ring." "Take us in, Nex," Arya ordered. "Standard approach." As the ship glided toward the shipyards, Arya studied the Nemesis through the viewport. Even unfinished, it was an imposing sight. All angular lines and weapons emplacements, designed to project the Alliance's power across the galaxy. "Quite a beast," commented Vexed from his station. "Indeed," Arya replied neutrally. "We'll maintain a respectful distance during our salvage work." Their assigned zone was perfect for cruise's purposes, close enough to scan the Nemesis's external systems, but not so close as to trigger heightened security. For 3 days, they conducted legitimate salvage work on decommissioned components, while secretly gathering intelligence on the Dreadnought. On the 4th day, disaster struck. "Lieutenant," called Nex urgently. "An Alliance patrol cruiser is approaching. They're requesting immediate boarding and inspection." Arya's blood ran cold. "Reason?" "Routine security sweep. They claim—" Nex looked uncomfortable. "But they specifically requested to inspect our data cores." Vexed caught her eye across the bridge. Their scans of the Nemesis were stored in a hidden partition of those cores, discoverable by a thorough search. "Comply with their request," Arya said calmly. "Prepare for boarding protocols." She turned to Vexed. "Commander, please accompany me to the cargo bay to receive our guests." In the corridor, away from the others, Arya spoke quickly. "We need to purge the data before they board." "The scans are encrypted and hidden," Vexed reminded her. "They would need to specifically look for them." "We can't take that risk." Arya checked her sidearm discreetly. "If they find those scans, everyone aboard is implicated in treason." Vexed considered for a moment. "There's another option. The maintenance airlock near Cargo Bay 2. I could take a suit, transfer the data to a secure drive, and jettison with it before they dock." "That's suicide," Arya hissed. "They'd detect you immediately." "Not if the Aurora suffers a convenient malfunction." Vexed's expression remained calm. "A plasma conduit rupture near the airlock would create enough radiation interference to mask my signature." Arya stared at him. "You'd be stranded in space with limited air supply. The Remnant has a stealth shuttle standing by at coordinates we arranged." Vexed revealed. "I can reach it before my air runs out." "You knew this might happen," Arya realized. Vexed almost smiled. "I calculated probabilities. It's what security officers do." The ship's intercom interrupted them. "Alliance cruiser docking in 5 minutes. Lieutenant," announced Trill. "Go," Arya decided. "I'll handle the malfunction." Minutes later, as the Alliance cruiser approached their starboard docking port, warning klaxons blared through the Aurora's Hope. "Plasma conduit breach in Section 14, reported the engineering officer. "Radiation levels spiking." "Seal off the affected area," Arya ordered, feigning alarm. "Inform the Alliance cruiser of our situation. Request they maintain distance until we contain the leak." The distraction worked. While the Alliance vessel held position 500 meters off their port bow, Vexed, in a maintenance suit with the precious data, drifted away from the ship's aft section, propelled by a short burst from maneuvering thrusters that would register as vented plasma to most sensors. By the time the malfunction was contained and the Alliance inspection team boarded, the hidden partition had been wiped clean. They found nothing suspicious, though their commander, a severe Arcturian female, made her skepticism clear. "Convenient timing for a plasma leak, Lieutenant," she remarked, as she prepared to depart. Arya maintained a neutral expression. Aging equipment, Commander. We're overdue for an overhaul. Indeed. The Arcturian's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of suspicion in her species. Be advised that security protocols around the shipyard have been elevated. Recent intelligence suggests possible insurgent activity. We'll remain vigilant, Arya assured her. The Aurora's hope stands with the Alliance. The lie tasted bitter on her tongue. After the inspection team departed, Arya gathered her senior crew. We've been ordered to conclude our salvage operation and depart the system, she informed them. Additionally, Commander Vext has been reassigned to temporary duty aboard the Alliance cruiser. Trill's antennae twitched in surprise. Without notice? That's highly irregular. Alliance security protocols, Arya replied smoothly. Commander Vext's expertise was requested for a classified operation. It was a weak explanation, but with Alliance bureaucracy as labyrinthine as it was, not entirely implausible. Still, she saw doubt in her crew's eyes, particularly Trill's. The Thulian communications officer was too perceptive for comfort. They departed the shipyard within hours, setting course for an uninhabited system where they could rendezvous with the remnant shuttle carrying Vext and the stolen data. Arya maintained their cover story, logging their destination as a known salvage site. 3 days later, in the shadow of a ringed gas giant, they made contact with the remnant shuttle. Vext returned aboard with the data intact, though visibly exhausted from his ordeal. The Alliance is suspicious, he reported in Arya's quarters. That Arcturian commander, Thala Kavor, has requested permission to track our movements. Arya frowned. How do you know this? I maintained access to Alliance communication channels during my detour. Vext sat heavily on a chair. The remnant shuttle intercepted transmissions. Kavor believes we may be connected to what they're calling human terrorist cells. Then we need to deliver this data and disappear, Arya decided. Set course for Mimir's Well. There's more, Vext said grimly. A covert Alliance probe followed a remnant supply ship back to an outpost in the Ceres cluster. They've discovered the existence of surviving humans. Arya felt the blood drain from her face. They know. Not about the main base at Mimir's Well. Not yet. But they've dispatched an elite task force to the Ceres outpost. Vext's expression was grim. The purge is beginning again. When they reached Mimir's Well 3 days later, the news had preceded them. The remnant base was on high alert, with defense systems activated and ships preparing for possible evacuation. Admiral Cruz received them immediately in the war room, now filled with officers planning emergency operations. Your timing is critical, Lieutenant, he said without preamble. Our position has been compromised sooner than anticipated. Arya handed over the data drive. Everything we could gather on the Nemesis, structural schematics, security protocols, crew rotations, weapon systems. Cruz passed the drive to a technician, who immediately began analyzing its contents on a secure terminal. The Ceres outpost? Arya asked. Cruz's expression darkened. Destroyed. 300 civilians. Lieutenant, the Alliance didn't even attempt to take prisoners. The room fell silent, the weight of those deaths hanging heavy in the air. They called it sanitizing a terrorist infection, Cruz continued, voice tight with controlled rage. The same language they used 30 years ago. The technician looked up from his terminal. Admiral, the data is complete. We have everything we need to proceed with Operation Prometheus. Cruz nodded. Prepare the assault teams. We move in 72 hours. 72 hours, Arya repeated incredulously. That's not enough time to prepare a strike force capable of taking the Nemesis. We don't have a choice, Cruz replied. The Alliance is on alert. They're increasing security across all military installations. This may be our only window. It's suicide, Arya insisted. Cruz's eyes flashed. It's survival. Lieutenant, the Alliance has shown their hand. They know we exist, and they won't stop until every last human is dead. He gestured to the assembled officers. Each of these men and women has lost everything to Alliance justice. We all knew this day would come. Arya looked around the room, seeing determination in every face. These weren't just soldiers. They were survivors. People who had hidden, watched their families die, lived in fear for decades. Now, faced with discovery, they chose to fight rather than run. "What do you need from the Aurora's Hope?" she finally asked. Cruz's expression softened slightly. "Your ship has legitimate Alliance credentials. We need you to transport our strike team to the shipyard. After that, the choice is yours." Arya nodded slowly. "I'll need to speak with my crew. They deserve to know the truth before I ask them to commit treason." "Of course." Cruz hesitated, then added more quietly, "Lieutenant, whatever happens, know that humanity's survival may depend on your actions in the coming days. Choose wisely." Back aboard the Aurora's Hope, Arya gathered her senior crew in the mess hall. Vext stood beside her as she explained everything: her human identity, the remnant, the impending strike against the Alliance dreadnought. When she finished, stunned silence filled the room. Trill spoke first, antennae flat against her head in distress. "You lied to us. For years." "I did," Arya acknowledged. "To survive. To protect you from the burden of knowledge that could get you executed." "And now you've made us accomplices," said Nex, the navigator. "The data we collected, we're all implicated." "No." Arya shook her head firmly. "Official records show Commander Vext and I were the only ones with access to the classified scanning equipment. If questioned, you can truthfully say you were unaware of our activities." "That's your solution?" Trill demanded. "We lie to the Alliance authorities?" "That is one option," Arya agreed. "The other is to help us. To stand against a government that executes entire species it deems inconvenient." "You're asking us to betray our own governments," said the engineering officer, a Rigelian named Moro. "To side with humans against the Alliance." "I'm asking you to choose justice over genocide," Arya corrected. "But I won't force that choice on any of you. Those who wish to leave can take the shuttle with enough supplies to reach the nearest Alliance outpost." Silence fell again as the crew exchanged glances, weighing options, calculating risks. "I witnessed the purge," Vext said quietly. "I watched Alliance peacekeepers execute children for the crime of being human. I saw families torn apart, entire settlements reduced to ash." His normally impassive features showed rare emotion. "What they did was not justice. It was not security. It was slaughter." Moro, the Rigelian engineer, stood. "My people joined the Alliance for protection, for stability, not for this." He looked at Arya. "I will help you, Lieutenant." One by one, the others declared their support, some enthusiastically, others with clear reservation. Only Trill remained silent, her alien features unreadable. "And you?" Arya finally asked her. Trill's antennae quivered. "My sister serves on an Alliance cruiser," she said softly. "If this leads to war—" "It already is war," Vext pointed out. "The Alliance simply didn't bother to declare it." Trill closed her multifaceted eyes briefly. "I need time, Lieutenant." "Of course," Arya nodded. "Anyone who chooses not to participate will be transported to a neutral world with sufficient funds to begin anew. No one will be abandoned." As the crew dispersed, Arya felt a weight both lifting and settling. The truth was out. But now, the real burden began. She was committing not just herself, but her ship and crew, to open rebellion against the most powerful government in the galaxy. Vext remained behind after the others left. "They took it better than expected," he observed. Arya sighed. "Did they? Or are they simply afraid to oppose us, now that they know?" "Does it matter?" Vext asked bluntly. "In 72 hours, we either succeed in crippling the Alliance's new weapon, or we die trying. Their motivations are secondary to their competence. That's cold, even for you, Arya remarked. War requires clarity, not warmth. Vexed replied. You've spent 30 years hiding. Arya, can you lead these people into battle? The question struck at her core uncertainty. She had been trained as an Earth Defense Force officer, but had never seen actual combat. Her mother had been the warrior, Captain Elena Voss, who went down with her ship rather than surrender to Alliance forces. I guess we'll find out, she said finally. 60 hours later, Operation Prometheus was in motion, the Aurora's hope. Its hold, now filled with 20 remnant commandos disguised as salvage crew, approached Tannhauser shipyards once more. This time, their salvage permits directed them to the inner construction zone, dangerously close to the Nemesis itself. Approaching final position, Nex announced, voice steady despite the tension that filled the bridge. Transmission from shipyard control, reported Trill, who had ultimately decided to remain with the ship. They're requesting confirmation of our work order. Send the authentication codes, Arya ordered. A tense moment passed. Clearance confirmed, Trill said. We're authorized to proceed. The Aurora's Hope glided into position alongside one of the massive structural arms that held the Nemesis in place. From this distance, the dreadnought's scale was breathtaking and terrifying. Its weapon systems alone could destroy a small fleet. Once operational, it would make the Alliance's military supremacy absolute. In the cargo bay, Dr. Mira Thal, the Remnant's chief engineer and the mission's technical lead, made final adjustments to the boarding pods. A brilliant scientist who had once worked for the Alliance before defecting to the human cause. Thal had designed the specialized equipment that would allow the strike team to breach the Nemesis's still incomplete hull. Remember, she instructed the assembled commandos, your primary objective is to reach the main engineering section and plant these charges. She held up a device the size of her palm. They're designed to look like standard power regulators. Once installed in the primary plasma conduits, they'll be virtually undetectable. Captain Lorne Vexed, now wearing the uniform of a remnant officer rather than his Alliance security garb, checked his weapon. And the secondary objective? Data retrieval, Thal replied. The Nemesis's computer core contains the complete tactical database for the Alliance fleet. With it, we could predict their movements, counter their strategies. Arya, standing at the back of the cargo bay, studied the assembled team. They were skilled, determined, and likely to die in the next few hours. The plan was bold, but desperate. Breach the Nemesis, plant explosive devices that would detonate once the ship was operational, and escape before Alliance security realized what had happened. Final checks complete, announced Thal. Ready to deploy on your command, Lieutenant. Arya nodded. Launch when ready. The boarding pods, 4 cylindrical devices designed to magnetically attach to the Nemesis's hull, were loaded into the launch tubes. On Thal's signal, they shot silently from the Aurora's Hope, crossing the short distance to the dreadnought's outer plating. All pods attached successfully, reported one of the technicians. Cutting through hull now. On the bridge, Arya watched the operation via secure feed. If all went according to plan, the strike team would enter the Nemesis, complete their mission, and return within 3 hours, before the shift change that would bring hundreds more Alliance personnel aboard. For 2 hours, everything proceeded smoothly. The strike team moved through the partially constructed ship, avoiding the skeleton crew of engineers and security personnel. They reached the main engineering section and began planting the explosive devices. Then the alarm sounded. Lieutenant, Trill called urgently. Multiple Alliance vessels approaching at high speed. Combat configuration. Arya's heart sank. How many? 3 cruisers and a destroyer, Trill reported, voice tight. They're hailing all vessels in the vicinity to stand down for security inspection. Vexed, who had remained aboard to coordinate the operation, met Arya's gaze across the bridge. They know. Thal. Arya activated the comm to the strike team. You've been compromised. Complete primary objective and withdraw immediately. We need 5 more minutes, came Thal's strained reply, the sound of weapons fire in the background. Alliance security forces are converging on our position. You don't have 5 minutes, Arya responded. The entire Alliance fleet is bearing down on this shipyard. Complete your mission and get out now. She turned to Vexed. Prepare to retrieve the boarding pods the moment they signal readiness. Next, plot an escape vector. Maximum speed once our people are aboard. Lieutenant, Trill interrupted. The Alliance vessels are demanding we power down and prepare to be boarded. They're specifically naming the Aurora's Hope. Stall them, Arya ordered. Tell them we're experiencing power fluctuations and need time to stabilize our systems. On the tactical display, the Alliance vessels moved into blocking positions around the shipyard, cutting off escape routes. The Aurora's Hope was trapped. Thal, status? Arya demanded over the comm. Charges planted, came the reply, punctuated by the sound of intense fighting. But we're cut off from the boarding pods. Alliance forces between us and extraction point. Arya's mind raced through options, each worse than the last. Secondary escape route through maintenance shaft J7, she decided. We'll reposition to retrieval point Alpha 2. Negative, Thal responded grimly. Too many hostiles. We'll never make it. A pause. Then, complete the mission, Lieutenant. Get the Aurora clear and detonate the charges. That's not an option, Arya snapped. We don't leave our people behind. The mission is more important than any of us, Thal insisted. The charges are set, but they need to be triggered manually now. Someone has to stay. Arya closed her eyes briefly, the weight of command crushing down on her. 20 lives against potentially millions if the Nemesis became operational. The cold calculus of war that she had avoided for 30 years now demanded her answer. Understood, she finally said. Transmitting activation codes now. She nodded to Vexed, who reluctantly sent the sequence that would allow Thal to detonate the charges. It's been an honor, Lieutenant, Thal said quietly. The honor was mine, Doctor, Arya replied, using Thal's full title as requested. Odysseus lives! Odysseus lives, Thal echoed, before the communication cut off. Get us out of here, Arya ordered next. Emergency thrust, now. The Aurora's Hope lurched forward, engines straining as it accelerated away from the Nemesis. Alliance vessels immediately moved to intercept. They're locking weapons, called Trill. Evasive maneuvers, Arya commanded. Reroute all power to engines and shields. The ship rocked as the first volley of Alliance weapons fire struck their aft shields. On the tactical display, more Alliance vessels appeared, summoned by the alarm. We can't outrun them all, Nex said, voice strained as he fought to maintain control of the bucking ship. Arya gripped the command chair. We don't need to outrun them. We just need to get clear of the blast radius. Behind them, aboard the Nemesis, Dr. Mirathal and her strike team fought a desperate last stand in the engineering section. Surrounded by Alliance security forces, they protected the hidden charges with their lives, and when the last of her team fell, Thal activated the detonator. The explosion ripped through the Nemesis's partially completed engineering section, triggering a cascade of secondary explosions as power systems overloaded. The massive dreadnought shuddered, then began to break apart as structural supports failed. The Aurora's Hope, barely at safe distance, was buffeted by the shockwave. Arya watched on the view screen as the Alliance's greatest weapon tore itself apart in a series of spectacular explosions. They did it, whispered Nex in awe. But their victory was short-lived. The Alliance vessels, momentarily distracted by the destruction of the Nemesis, quickly regrouped, and their focus turned to the fleeing Aurora's Hope. 6 vessels in pursuit, reported Trill. They're gaining. Maintain course to jump point, Arya ordered. We need to reach the rendezvous coordinates. Another hit rocked the ship, more violent than before. Port shields failing, called Morrow from engineering. One more direct hit and we're finished. Arya exchanged glances with Vexed. They were outgunned, outmaneuvered, with no hope of escape. The mission had succeeded, but they would not live to report it. "Transmission from the lead Alliance vessel," Trill announced. It's Grand Admiral Sareth Kane. Kane, the architect of humanity's extinction. The man who had ordered the death of billions. His face appeared on the main view screen, angular and cold, the distinctive crest of his Solarian species, running from his forehead to the back of his skull. "Unidentified vessel," he began, voice as frigid as space itself. "You have committed acts of terrorism against the Galactic Alliance. Surrender immediately or be destroyed." Arya stood, facing the image of humanity's greatest enemy. "This is Lieutenant Arya Voss of the Earth Defense Force. We do not recognize the authority of a government built on genocide." Kane's expression shifted subtly. Surprise, perhaps, or curiosity. "Earth Defense Force? Impossible. Humanity is abolished." "Humanity survives," Arya replied defiantly. "And as long as one of us draws breath, we will resist your tyranny." "A noble sentiment," Kane said dismissively. "But futile. Your ship is crippled, your escape cut off. Surrender, and perhaps some of your crew may be spared." Arya glanced at the tactical display. The Alliance vessels had them surrounded. There was no escape, but perhaps there was another way. "Grand Admiral," she said, straightening her posture, "I propose an exchange. My life for my crew. I will surrender myself to face trial for the destruction of the Nemesis. In return, my ship and its personnel will be granted safe passage out of Alliance space." Kane studied her through the view screen. "You must think me a fool, Lieutenant. Your crew are accessories to your crime." "My non-human crew were deceived," Arya countered. "They believed we were conducting legitimate salvage operations. I alone coordinated with the human resistance. It was a lie, but one that might save lives, if Kane believed it." "And why would I value your capture so highly?" Kane asked. "Because I can give you what you truly want," Arya said, playing her final card. "The location of the human remnant base, Admiral Cruz, all of it." Shock rippled through the bridge. Vexed stared at her, disbelief evident even on his normally stoic features. Kane's expression remained calculating. "Interesting. But how do I know you won't simply provide false information?" "You'll accompany me personally to verify the coordinates," Arya replied. "Just you and a small security detail aboard my ship. If I'm lying, you lose nothing. If I'm telling the truth, you complete what you began 30 years ago, the final abolition of humanity." For a long moment, Kane considered her offer, while Arya held her breath. Everything depended on his pride, his desire to be the one who finally ended the human problem, once and for all. "Very well, Lieutenant," he finally said. "I accept your terms. Your crew will be granted safe passage. After I verify your information, prepare to receive my shuttle." The transmission ended. "Have you lost your mind?" Vex demanded immediately. "You're going to betray the Remnant." "No," Arya said quietly. "I'm going to end this, one way or another." She looked around at her stunned crew. "When Kane boards with his security team, I want all non-essential personnel in the evacuation pods, ready to launch on my signal." "What are you planning?" Vex asked, suspicion clear in his voice. Arya met his gaze steadily. "Something Admiral Cruz taught me. Sometimes, the only way to win is to ensure your enemy loses more than you do." 20 minutes later, Grand Admiral Kane's shuttle docked with the Aurora's Hope. Arya met him in the airlock, flanked by Vexed and 2 remnant soldiers who had remained hidden aboard. Kane, accompanied by 4 heavily armed Solarian guards, regarded her with cold disdain. "Lieutenant Voss, a pleasure to finally meet one of the last humans. Your species has been remarkably persistent." "We're difficult to abolish," Arya replied evenly. "This way to the bridge. Admiral, I'll show you exactly what you want to see." As they moved through the corridors, Arya noted with satisfaction that her orders had been followed. The ship was nearly deserted. Most of the crew secured in evacuation pods, ready to launch. On the bridge, Kane surveyed the damaged systems with mild interest. "Your vessel has survived remarkably well, considering the circumstances." "We're resilient," Arya said, moving to the navigation console. "Like my species." She began entering coordinates, genuine coordinates, but not to Mimir's well. Instead, she input the location of an uninhabited system nearby. "These are the coordinates of the remnant base?" Kane asked skeptically. "No," Arya admitted. "These are the coordinates where you die, Admiral." Before Kane's guards could react, Vext and the remnant soldiers opened fire, cutting down 2 of the Solarians instantly. The others returned fire, and the bridge erupted into chaos. Arya ducked behind a console, drawing her own weapon. She had one chance to reach the emergency controls. Across the bridge, Vext engaged Kane himself, the Centaurian's combat training evident as he matched the Admiral's moves. But Kane was not Grand Admiral for nothing. With a swift, practiced motion, he drove a blade into Vext's side. "Vext!" Arya cried out, breaking cover to fire at Kane. The Admiral dodged with inhuman speed, then raised his weapon toward her. "A futile gesture, Lieutenant. Humanity's last stand is as pathetic as its first." His finger tightened on the trigger, just as Vext, wounded but not defeated, grabbed his ankle. The shot went wide, and Arya seized her moment. She lunged for the emergency controls and slammed her palm onto the evacuation sequence. Throughout the ship, evacuation pods launched simultaneously, carrying her crew to safety. At the same moment, the ship's automated systems engaged, locks sealing the bridge, engines powering up to maximum. "What have you done?" demanded Kane, shaking free of Vext's grip. "What my mother did 30 years ago," Arya replied. "Chosen the manner of my death." She straightened, facing humanity's executioner without fear. "I've set a collision course with your flagship. Admiral, this ship will reach ramming speed in 30 seconds. Kane's eyes widened as he realized the truth. He rushed to the controls, but they were locked to his access. His guards tried to force the bridge doors, but they too were sealed. "You'll die too," he snarled. "A fair exchange to eliminate the architect of humanity's genocide," Arya replied calmly. She moved to Vext, who lay bleeding on the deck, and knelt beside him. "I'm sorry, old friend." "Don't be," Vext whispered, pain evident in his voice. "We all choose our fate." On the view screen, the Alliance flagship grew larger as the Aurora's Hope accelerated toward it. Proximity alarms blared, warning of imminent collision. Kane, abandoning his attempts to override the controls, faced Arya with newfound respect. "It seems I underestimated your species' capacity for sacrifice, Lieutenant Voss." "That was always your mistake, Admiral," Arya replied. "You thought you could abolish us with words, with decrees. But humanity isn't a designation to be erased from your records. It's a spirit, and it survives." The distance closed rapidly, 10 seconds to impact. 5, 3. Arya closed her eyes, thinking of her mother, of Earth, of all that had been lost. And she smiled. The Aurora's Hope struck the Alliance flagship at maximum velocity, its reinforced prow punching through the larger vessel's command section. The impact triggered a chain reaction, as power cores overloaded and weapon systems detonated. Within seconds, both ships were engulfed in a massive explosion that rippled outward, damaging nearby Alliance vessels. In the Orion corridor, as the debris of the flagship scattered across space, the battle turned. The remnant fleet, arriving precisely on schedule, engaged the disorganized Alliance forces. Without their flagship, without Grand Admiral Kane's leadership, the Alliance command structure faltered. It wasn't a decisive victory, The Alliance still possessed overwhelming military superiority, but it was a statement that could not be ignored. Humanity was not extinct, not abolished, and they would fight for their right to exist. In the aftermath, as the remnant fleet regrouped at emergency coordinates, Admiral Cruz stood on the bridge of his command ship, watching the battle reports with a mixture of grief and pride. The Aurora's hope was lost, along with Lieutenant Voss and Commander Vext. But their sacrifice had eliminated Grand Admiral Kane and created confusion in the Alliance hierarchy, a window of opportunity the remnant desperately needed. "Sir," his communications officer called, "we're receiving a transmission. It's being broadcast across all Alliance frequencies." "Source?" Cruz demanded. "Unknown, sir. But it's using an Earth Defense Force encryption algorithm." Cruz's brow furrowed. "Put it through." The message was simple, just a few words repeated in a continuous loop. Humanity abolished? No, we survived. Throughout Alliance space, on every world, every station, every vessel, the message played. The encryption made it nearly impossible to block, forcing even the highest levels of Alliance government to acknowledge its existence. And in the chambers of the Alliance High Council, as reports of the Nemesis's destruction and Kane's death arrived alongside this defiant broadcast, uncomfortable questions began to surface. Questions about the truth of humanity's extinction, about the morality of genocide, about the foundation upon which their unified government had been built. It wasn't reconciliation. Not yet. The wounds were too deep, the hatred too ingrained. But it was a beginning, a crack in the narrative, a whisper of truth in a galaxy that had been fed lies. On distant worlds, in secret places, humans who had hidden their identity for decades heard the message and stood a little straighter. In the remnant base at Mimir's Well, new recruits arrived daily, not just humans, but aliens who questioned the Alliance's version of history. And aboard the evac pods from the Aurora's Hope, as they were retrieved by remnant vessels, Trill stared at the communications display, broadcasting Lieutenant Voss's final message. She thought of her sister, serving on an Alliance cruiser, of the conflict that would surely intensify in the coming months. War was inevitable now. But perhaps, just perhaps, it could lead to something other than extinction. Humanity abolished? She whispered to herself, antennae quivering with emotion. No, they survived. In the vast silence of space, where the Aurora's Hope had made its final stand, fragments of debris drifted in ever-widening patterns. Among them, a small data recorder, its emergency beacon pulsing faintly. Within it, Lieutenant Arya Voss's final log, a testament to courage and sacrifice, waiting to be found. And across the galaxy, the whispers spread.